What's up, gangsters? It's a quiet and cloudy Monday morning out here in the middle of nowhere. And I was thinking about the fact that I did not really have a video topic that I was just chomping at the bit to get done this week. But I didn't want to let up the momentum, so I decided to do a little bit of a waffle. Partly because a good topic just happened to pop up in Scale Modeler's critique group that is kind of near and dear to my heart. I just never had thought about making a video about it. And that is the subject of this video's title, Fixing Things. Now, when you're as much of a ham-fisted barbarian at the workbench as I am, fixing shit is just a way of life. I feel like I spend almost as much time unfucking my mistakes as I do in the actual build process. And sometimes that can get pretty frustrating, but I really believe it's the right thing to do. And here's why. The first reason is that it's just going to keep you from regrets later. That's a big one for me. That's the reason why, even after doing most of the body work in the area, I sawed the tail off my Accurate Miniatures B25 Mitchell and fixed it because it was so significantly crooked. I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to live with that from then on, especially given how much work I was putting into that project over the course of a year. And now, every time I walk by that thing, I look at the tail and I see how nice and straight and level it is. And I'm so happy that I forced myself to do that, even though I was terrified of the process. Because I just know myself well enough to understand that had I not fixed it, that even though all of the things being equal, had it turned out as well as it did, that had I left the tail crooked, every time I looked at that thing, there would be a little seed of dissent growing in my mind, and that eventually I would have come to hate it. And partly because I would hate myself for the laziness of not doing it, but also because I know that I never want to build one of those things again. And so by leaving it unfixed, I would have lost my opportunity to really have a nice result on that particular kit and that particular project. So for me, there's just a whole bunch of reasons that it really is the right thing to do. But here's another one, and this is really a good one for the guy in particular, because he was showing us his model on Scale Modeler's critique group, and overall it looked pretty good. But I immediately noticed, as soon as I looked at the photographs, that he had a pretty bad seam line across the top of the fuselage. And, my feeling, going back to reason number one was, look, don't let this be the thing that distracts everybody from all the good work that you did, especially you as you look at that project sitting on your shelf, for the months and years to come. Just get in there and fix it already. But here's the real reason number two, and that is that I haven't found anything that I think is more that gives you more mileage and more value for the time spent in terms of developing your confidence than fixing something. And part of the reason is because fixing stuff is hard. You sometimes have to think outside the box to figure out how you're going to do it. And part of the reason for that is because it usually comes at a point when you're already pretty well invested in things. I mean, this is a really good example right here. This is the Tamiya Porsche 934 that I've been working on for a long time. And I decided when I first got into this that my number one thing was that I wanted a flawless paint job. I did not want to be able to look at this thing from, way far away and say, oh, it looks pretty shiny, and look at it up close and see the orange peel or the little bumps or, in an exact certain angle of the light to be able to see little flaws. So I was determined that I was going to put all my real effort into good paint and a good clear coat and a good polish. Yeah, be careful what you wish for. I feel like I've been polishing this thing for a week, and that's because I have. Every day, polish, 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 and work, work, work. And it's just brute force work. And there's been several moments where I had to fix something because of my own incompetence. I showed everybody in public the roof I had pretty well polished out. And then, I had it pretty well sanded out. But as I was continuing to go through the sanding steps, because that's the secret really, I think, with polishing, is in how well you do your sanding before you go to the compounds. I picked up the wrong sander, or actually I just had it on the wrong side. It was a 240-1200, and I wasn't paying attention, and I touched off on this roof with the 240 side when I was supposed to be using the 1200, and it scratched the shit out of it. And I do a lot of my work, most of my work, with my Optivisor on, and every time I was looking at this thing, looking at that roof, I could see those scratches. And I was trying to sand them out, and I thought I had it, and then I'd polish, and they'd still be there. So I'd go back and I'd do some more. I'd back up to the next rougher compound, and I'd polish some more. And I finally got to the point where I felt like I was satisfied with it. And then I I did a really stupid thing. While I was polishing it, I use my Proxon. I use this gizmo right here. And stupid of all stupidity, one of the things you have to pay attention to when you're polishing is not grabbing an edge. So I'm polishing along, and I accidentally kicked the back edge of this thing and caused the polisher to jump, and the chuck bounced off the roof and chipped all the way through the clear coat. That's why I have tape on the chuck now. And I was crushed. I was like, I can't believe this. But there was no choice. I mean, I had a divot that you could see from a mile away in the clear coat. So I sanded it down as much as I felt like was appropriate, taped it off, resprayed the clear coat, and went all the way back through the polishing steps. And even then, after getting it all the way done, I kept looking at it sitting on the bench. Kept looking at it, and in just the right light, I could see some sort of a little jaggedness or waviness in the clear coat. And that means, if you can see that with your naked eye, that means you've got scratches in your clear coat that haven't been polished smooth. And so I finally just said, okay, I just can't deal with it. And I went back and tried a different piece of sandpaper, and it was like magic. Suddenly, all those scratches that I'd been wrestling with were gone. And when I went back to do the next polish, I had it. I don't know if you're going to be able to really see it. There's not enough light, not enough sunlight coming in today. But if I there we go. Maybe if I run you can see that. That is pretty damn tight. I mean, look, it's never going to be 100% perfect. There's, if you don't have to polish with an Optivisor, there's good reasons not to, because you're going to see every single flaw. And it may drive you crazy, but you get my point. And that wasn't the only place. Trust me, there have been at least a half dozen things on this that I've had to fix since I did the first polishing cut. It's super, super frustrating. But here's the thing. I have a lot more confidence now, not only in my ability to polish correctly, but in my ability to fix a goober in a clear coat that's already been sprayed. I had a little tiny nick on one edge of one of these fender skirts that went clear through to the primer. I mean, it was white. I could see it. And I had to just take a little bit of brush painting with a little bit of the red lacquer on a tiny little brush. And then actually I brush painted a tiny little bead of clear lacquer on top of it, and then very carefully polished it by hand. The first time I did it, I polished it with my rotary tool the way I had been, and I knocked that little fix right off of there. The little bit of clear coat and the little bit of paint that I had brushed on there, boom, gone. So came back, did it a second time, and then that time I polished it by hand with a Q-tip just in that area so that I didn't have to hit it with the machine. Got it fixed. Nobody will ever know unless I point you to the exact specific spot and you're wearing a magnifier that I actually had a goober right there. So again, I learned something, and I've developed my confidence to the point where I don't feel like there's any situation within reason with a clear coat that I couldn't take care of if I had an issue. And that just gives me a ton of confidence going into the next glossy project that I do, which is not going to be anytime soon. I promise you that. And that has applied across everything that I've been doing in model making, over the last year and a half or 2 years. I find that I honestly feel like I learn the most and develop my confidence the most when I force myself to go back and fix something. And also because I don't want to have to do that any more than I have to, no matter how good it is for me, no matter how much it builds character. And so it cements it in my head for the next time, what did I do that caused the mistake in the first place, and helps me not make that mistake again. So those are my reasons for why you should just fix that shit. Number one, so you can live with yourself. And number two, so that you can learn more and develop more confidence in your skills. And look, I think if you want to get better and if you're as serious about getting good results as I am, then those are all the reasons you need. So anyway, I apologize for rambling on about all this, but seemed like a good topic. I hope you guys agree, and I appreciate you watching as always. Take care. Much love.